Welcome to our webinar, the ideal UI UX for audio reporting in the field. I'm really pleased to welcome you. Thank you for taking time out and joining us. We are delighted to have today the journalist Tim Klotz as a special guest. Thanks, Tim, for joining us today. This webinar will last 45 minutes. And we will have time at the end for some questions, but please write your question in the chat during the presentation so we can answer all of them. You will also get a chance to win a Ferncast t-shirt with our traditional quiz. So stay tuned, it will come soon. And last information, we will be sending out a recording, so the webinar recording, to all of you by the end of the week. Let me introduce now the speakers of the day. Thomas Schlien, Senior Software Engineer at Ferncast. Tobias Dornbusch, Product Expert at Ferncasts. And Tim Klotz, journalist, moderator, and commentator for the German football club Mainz 05. Let's have a look at the agenda now. Detlef Wiese, Ferncast CEO, will give you a short overview of Ferncast history and applications. And then Tim Klotz will share his experience using aixtream UI from the user experience. And after that, Thomas Schlien will explain the technical implementation of the Mainz 05 use case from a development and technical side. And at the end, Tobias Dornbusch will showcase aixtream UI and further aixtream capabilities with a focus of SIP communications, widgets, and automatization. And as I mentioned already, there will be some time at the end for some questions, but please use the chat. I'm going to give the floor now to Detlef Wiese, who is going to give us a short overview of Ferncast applications.
Yeah, thank you, Virginie, for this nice introduction and a very warm welcome from the Ferncast office in Munich, where also Virginie is located, while the other Ferncast people here in this webinar today are from the Aachen office located at the German-Dutch-Belgium border. So let us have a look to Ferncast briefly. Just want to give you an intro. So we started 2018, end of 2018, with really a very clear vision and philosophy to build software for any live audio. We had a key account starting in 2019 with Deutschlandradio on streaming, later on also on podcast creation. And since then, our footprint slowly but safely has been growing through the broadcast world, first mainly in Germany, but now also more in Europe and beyond. And that also probably is a reason for the international audience we have in our webinars like today. I see people I know and some I don't know from various countries in Europe. So we have been growing. We are a small but very agile and flexible team, and go further in 2023 now with our plannings. Background is we are some Maya people and also IKS PhDs, MSc people from the university in Aachen. As I said, we had originally the plan for software for any live audio, which we actually build. For one customer, we recently made some calculation and found out that already much more than 30 person years development are in this software. I can say that we are number one encoding OTT software in public radio in Germany, and the footprint is growing. The applications are growing from OTT streaming via MPX, from ZIP to WebRTC, from studio transmitter links, loudness, from audio on demand to DAB and DVB. Yeah, this graphic is maybe reflecting a bit the idea of aixtream of the software. We can consider it a bit like a matrix, so with inputs and outputs and processing in between. So you can connect via nodes, inputs and outputs. You can distribute the audio, mix it, process it, provide a variety of protocols. And it doesn't matter whether we talk about formats like AES-67, Dante, Livewire. We talk about any types of encoding, all types of protocols, depending on the applications, of course. And that's also why the set of application has become very rich over the last 4 years, so that from streaming we have went to lots of other applications, as I already mentioned, like SIP, but also DAB, demuxing, streaming, FM reception and streaming, MPX, and even further it goes now into a full micro MPX, Dolby Atmos. So it's a continuously growing software for this market. And yeah, today we have a very clear focus on the reporting side. Regarding applications, yeah, all of those applications somehow have already been in place. It's not this webinar where we go in detail. We have some other webinars where we will really go into use cases for each of those applications a bit more as a summary. There will be other scheduled webinars also throughout this year. But I can say that, let's say, on the streaming side, it's really a fully operational Xstream software with all types of protocols to reach players and the recipients, the client software. It's a full podcast creation part to do automated files in broadcast operation studios. It's transcoding DAB to MPEG-TS or to streaming, a full DVB multiplexing. It's using very secure protocols like SRT, RIST, and others for studio transmitter links. So it's a full replacement in software for very stable studio transmitter links. On the loudness part, it's very interesting. I think there will be some news also coming in the next month. So we can show a very, very interesting loudness processing, which is in place. And further, SIP is very important. So we run, for instance, the EBU SIP server and some others also through Europe. So it's a very broad field, which I would like to just give you now an overview. And I think it's time to give the word back to Virginie so that we can further continue in the program today.
Thanks, Detlef. I would like to introduce now the journalist Tim Klotz, who is going to share his experience using Xstream UI as a commentator for the German football club Mainz 05. Mainz 05 is using audio codec server Mini running Xstream software, and Ferncast has customized the UI, Xstream UI, to optimize their workflow and answer their specific request. I will leave the words now to Tim, who can explain that further in details.
Thank you very much, Virginie. And a warm welcome to everybody who is listening and watching. Now you can see what we do and how we do it in a one picture, the one to the right. So we broadcast every game of Mainz 05 in the Bundesliga. We broadcast every cup game. Like tomorrow, we play Bayern Munich. If you're interested, you can join on 05.fm, and then you can actually get a live impact and a live comment. Oh, my English is not on the same level as it used to be. So, but if you want to listen in and then see how it works, what we're talking about, then you're more than welcome to. So we broadcast every test game between seasons. We together with Ferncasts developing a system, I might call it, with hardware and software, which is very dependable, because as you see, you need to be out in the cold or in the sunshine, wherever. And we've reached a stage where this system, as you see now in front of me, so you can take it anywhere. I've been in Austria with it. I've been in Stuttgart. You can even take it to Spain in the training camps. So this what we see here is a possibility to live audio stream from just about anywhere, and all you need is an internet connection. to the on the table you see to the left. This little thing connects to the PC, and there you have all your functions that you need to do, be able to just for a one-man show, know people to help you to get through a game or a live broadcast, 90 minutes, 60 minutes, whatever. This is how we set up everything that is needed. And if you now please, Thomas, to the other screen with the surface, with the user surface. There we go. And this is what I especially work with. Even if we're not in the stadium, we can do this from a little office at the Stadion, which is the old stadium of Mainz 05. You can plug it in at your house. We've even been to a bar in downtown and broadcast from there. And this is all you need actually to be able to live broadcast for just a very basic routine thing. And the potential, you can see like dashboard, the Reiter, I don't know what it's called in English, above with dashboard, phone book, pipes. So there's so many things. You can even create more content, create more creative streaming ideas. But if you just want to have the basics, this is what you need. You have your 4 channels. You can plug in 4 microphones. Then to the right, you have your meter, which is important for the signal that goes out. Everybody knows that, and you can even it has a limiter in it. So, but it works even with manual. Well,
I think you mean a fader. Is that a fader? Yeah.
Yes, please, thank you. And you can manually fade it or manually put it in. But as everybody knows, if you're doing live coverage of anything, there is no need, there is no time to put anything manually. So you can all set that up in beforehand, and you have it ready to go. You have your own profiles, so you can save anything in multiple profiles as whatever you need, even if you're outside with loud noises around or you're inside. You can adjust that in every possible way. You can add below. You see 2 moderator buttons already activated. You can 3 buttons below that. It's in German. It says Anrufer live stream. You can have callers within the live stream. Yeah, you can the MP3. You can add interview things, or you can. I don't know if you can hear it. It should be, if it's the same surface I have, we might even hear because we have a jingle, a commercial jingle stored in there, so you can add up all different things to make your coverage, your topic, whatever you're talking about, to add all kinds of things, audio-wise. So now my voice is starting to leave me. I have a little drink. If you have any questions, feel free to ask now.
If you have some question, you can write some in the chat, or you can ask Tim. We have a few minutes.
I would like to add that it's has been already quite a long year cooperation with Mainz 05 and Tim and his colleagues, and it's for a company like us, who is very, of course, technically driven, is a very, very valuable cooperation, because it means that we have, through Tim and his colleagues, direct insight into the use case and get really very, very detailed feedback about the needs of customers. And it's for us the possibility to learn about details in the workflow and really to optimize our UI. And that's also, I think, the indication we always want to give to people, that we are willing to adapt, to learn, and to, let's say, reach an optimal workflow for our partners and clients, because then both sides can be very happy.
Yeah, and if I might add to that, that is the valuable part of it, because I'm not the most IT kind of guy. But if there's a problem, there's always great support. If there's an idea, I don't know, we need another button down there for whatever reason, we can always call up the people. I talk mostly to Thomas, Thomas, and they make it possible. And that's what Detlef said. It's very flexible. You can add stuff. You can delete stuff. Thomas, if you might go please to the pipe writer for pipes. Yes, here you see, so that even exceeds my ability, but there's so many possibilities to add certain things for the signal that goes out to the server over. Here you can have Klingeltöne, Stadionatmo, so you can have all kinds of different signals going in or out. You put them over, or different sound bites you can add. You see group templates, pipe templates, so you can build your own. It's individual style, so its potential it's enormous actually. And right now, I must admit, because we're still at Mainz 05 with the club media level and the internet audio streaming, we're still at the beginning, and we might be using right now, to be honest, only like 10% of the aixtream, and that's actually very, very sad. But we're not fast enough to use all the good stuff. But we're getting there, and it's very interesting, and it's very exciting actually to work with this thing. Yeah, to experience together what else is possible. This is actually a very useful tool for what I'm doing.
Yeah. Thanks, Tim.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Tim, for your testimonial. So Thomas is going now to explain the technical implementation of the Mainz 05 use case from a development and technical part.
So welcome from my side too. I'm sitting in the office in Aachen at the moment, and I'd like to show you a bit the developer perspective of this project with Mainz 05. So as Tim already said, we have this dashboard here, which we actually made for them, part of it at least. So on the left side, we have the audio interface control. You can see the level meter here. So it's a little bit higher now because I'm talking here in the office, and I can also mute the stuff so that the moderator, if he has to cover something like that, then he can mute it himself. So, and then on the right side, we see some level meters here. It's just the file level meter. So I'm recording this session at the moment to a file. And normally when they start, they're going live, they click on live stream on website. And then at the moment, that's also one thing I wanted to show. There's an error because we cannot connect to the aixtcast server because I don't want to stream to the Mainz 05 FM radio at the moment, so I disabled that. But you can also see if something goes wrong, then you have a message here and it says what's going on. So and then we have this quick actions widget here, and this is actually based on the experience we had with Mainz 05. We need some easy way to actually allow the users to make some actions. And so we thought of a Raab board. I think the German ones knows it from TV Total, where Stefan Raab always hit the button and then you can see a small clip. And so this was the experience, inspiration for that. And at the moment, you can see that there's set up for 2 moderators. At the moment, at Mainz 05, they only have 1 moderator, Tim, but sometimes they had 2. So the idea is that actually a second moderator can, for example, take some calls from users that actually call the radio. And then, so I will demonstrate it for now. So we have now a call incoming. You can see it on the side below. And also there's a ringing noise played on the headphones of the moderators. And then moderator, for example, can decide to go into wants to get the caller, and then he accepts. And then he can actually talk to the caller and then make a pre-talk to what he wants to say. And after that, he just clicks moderator to live stream. and then everything is switched back, and then also the caller is switched to the live stream. So everyone is now on air, and they can talk with each other and have some chat about the game. Another thing is the MP3 in live stream here. So you can also add buttons for just playing stuff in the live stream. For example, this is a commercial here, or you can have like goal or something like that if you want to have goal. And yeah, on below we have the zip calls widget where you can actually see the active calls and also can make calls. So yeah, so for now I will just hang up the call, and then we are just the moderators in the live stream. So that is from a user perspective. So you can see how it is done. We also have a widget that's actually zip dial, so you can actually dial a number and call and then talk to players, for example. So I think Mainz 05 does that in the breaks, for example, or after the game, that they call a player and ask them some questions for the live stream. It's also very interesting, I think, for the listeners. So, and now in the background, we have some quite complicated configuration. So most of the stuff we actually hear and is audio related are our pipes. So we have pipes here. For example, here is the Icecast pipe. It takes the audio that's actually mixed for the live stream and then send it out via Icecast. So this is actually the pipe that was not working before, so I cannot now stop it. And we have a pipe that's actually recording the session, so that later they can make they can do it online for on demand, or yeah, like that. And also we have here an MP3 pipe that actually playing the commercial. And then we have also pipe groups, which are actually routing for example, here the caller to the live stream. So we see that there's a pipe for moderator and moderator 2, which actually goes to ZIP, so that the caller actually can hear the moderators. And there's a pipe that's going from the ZIP to the audio mix, so that actually the listeners of the radio can also hear the ZIP caller. So the setup is quite complicated, I would say. So you need some experience in our software to do so, but it's also very flexible, and we are always open to actually make such a configuration for our customers, especially if it's something special like in Mainz 05. And so you can also see here some groups that actually do the studio Atmos, so the atmospheric sound that's actually provided, for example, here by the DFL via an HTTPS connection. And then you can mix that in if you, for example, Tim is not in the stadium, but in a studio, in a tube, where he only has a television where he's watching the game. And then he can also have the Atmo from the DFL and put it in, so it sounds more live. So I think the most important part for enabling this dashboard widget, the quick edge items, are the applets, so our smart control system. And if you have a look, for example, if you have an incoming call, then an applet has always a trigger and an action. The trigger here is that actually the call is coming in, and when the call is coming in, we have a log that's actually written, and then actually we have the trigger that looks at log events and then it sees, okay, this I1108 is a call incoming, and then actually it's starting a pipe group, which actually sends the ringing to the moderators. And all that is done for a lot of stuff, for at least for the buttons in the dashboard you have seen, and then you can see that's quite some stuff. But the advantage of this is that it's very, very flexible. You can do a lot of stuff, even of things that we haven't thought before can be done, and without actually modifying our code. So normally we can just make an applet, and then we have a lot of use cases already done. And for Mainz 05, also important is the phone book. So they have a lot of phone numbers inserted there. I've not imported them here, but then you can just click the call button, and then you actually are connected to the player, for example. So I think that's a brief overview of the dashboard widgets and the case for Mainz 05. And if there are some questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, there is a question
It's-
maybe for Detlef. Do you have a diagram of how the hardware is connected in the stadium? But that Tobias already gave some answer. And then are you thinking about a mobile app for mobile devices, Android or iOS, for reporters in the field? A question for Tobias.
Mobile apps, of course, also very, very interesting. I mean, in this particular case we are talking today about is quite a set of headsets with more than one and microphones. So that means there is some mixing involved. There's also in the necessity of controlling lots of different activities. So that's why probably a mobile app for that particular case is not so appropriate. You see here 4 faders, you see 8 or more buttons, you see connections, you see presets. So that's is a variety, and the users here in this case, they want to have an overview of all activities at the same time. So in general, yeah, apps are interesting, and we have been looking also into that field, but we focus more on the area which is really addressing also more hardware needs and more hardware inputs, outputs.
Thanks for the answer. I don't see any question for the time being, but please feel free to write questions if you have more. We will continue. It's time now for our traditional quiz. So let's have a look. If you are ready. Here's a question. So who was the first international radio speaker on air? So you have a chance to win a Ferncast t-shirt. So please write your answer in the chat. We will have a look at the end. The right answer and the fastest one will win this beautiful blue Ferncast t-shirt. Let's continue now with Tobias, who is going to showcase now Extreme UI and further capabilities. So I will leave now the floor to Tobias.
So first up, hello. I am Tobias Dornbusch, the product expert here at Ferncast. And give me a moment to switch the screen sharing. Hopefully you see my screen now, if everything is correct. Perfect. So yes, we're currently on the online aixtream demo in the cloud. So if you're interested in checking out any more of this, you could also contact us and we can send you the link and access credentials. And yes, as Virginie had already teased, my part here is going to be going a little bit further beyond what Thomas just showed, slightly more general use of the aixtream UI, but also with a focus on the reporter, SIP use case, etc. Right. So first here we see the dashboard, of which we have seen quite a lot, though, as you will no doubt notice, it looks very different from the one that Thomas presented earlier. That is because the dashboards that we have are actually fully customizable, as you may have already guessed, seeing what Thomas presented. So basically, each of these tiles, let's say these elements, like this connection overview here, are individual widgets that you can place however you choose. So the UI you saw with Thomas, for example, is only one example. So when you create a new dashboard, or edit an existing one, you see this whole selection of different widgets that you can choose to add to it. I'm just clicking some together to give you an idea, and I need to move the Zoom panel here real quick. Unnamed, since I didn't give it a name. It looks fairly sparse right now, since many of these widgets are not properly configured, but it gives you an idea how to set up various functionalities. Maybe also interesting here, since we talked about the reporter use case, this balance control is like a almost three-dimensional, well, technically two-dimensional way to do balancing and volume control for multiple inputs. So this could also be interesting for this reporter use case that we just talked about. But yes, we are constantly adding new widgets or customizing existing widgets to user requirements, to obviously customer requests and so on. So this is also something that even if you have maybe a use case that is somewhat similar to the Mainz one, but the setup, how we did it for them, doesn't quite fit your setup, then it's almost certain that we can help you in some form or fashion by customizing it for that. Yeah, we've also seen the phone book for a moment already. Obviously, the concept itself should probably be familiar. It's simply where you can store SIP contacts mainly and so on, so you can recall them and use them also with the widgets that we saw, like the SIP call that Thomas showed, and also reference them in the applets for the quick actions and so on. In our case, you can do basically all the configuration for calls with that contact in the phone book entry. You can even set a picture so you can more easily recognize them, which may be relevant if you have a large number of connections. You set the call profile, which is something we will also get into a little bit more in a moment. Obviously, the address you're calling from, since you can be registered with multiple SIP accounts on the same system, this is oh, sorry, this would be the third option here, actually, of course, that's why the dropdown is there. So you can determine from which account or with which account you're calling, and of course, what address you're calling to. That's the second option here, and do the entire audio configuration. So you decide which input and output channels to use, etc., which you can either do by specifically choosing from the hardware channels available to you, or virtual ports, which is something we'll get to also in a moment, or by using pipes that you have already prepared as a sort of template for those calls. So you have a lot of different options how to do the setup there. It's important to note we do have a certain amount of automation in there. If you do none of the audio configuration, a sort of a standard pipe will be used in event of a call, but usually it's better to have a proper configuration done. Which once again brings us to the pipes. Very quickly, for those of you who are not entirely familiar with the concept yet, you may have been confused a little bit earlier about all these rows with colorful balls and so on. Pipes is how we do connection configuration. So the idea is that the entire connection from the input, that's normally this purple element here, to the output, usually this teal turquoise, is represented as this row of elements. So everything that happens to the audio signal from the input to the output is a pipe element. So in this example, for instance, an audio signal is coming in, volume is adjusted, the level is measured, it is MP3 encoded, and then sent out as an aixtcast online radio stream, for example. But that's just one example of how you can set this up. I can quickly show you the variety of options that are available. So here's the various sources, which is to say inputs. Audio processing is everything else that can happen to the pipe. Red elements are usually after the input, while blue elements usually happen after the output. Like, for instance, encryption, if are very safety conscious, let's say, security conscious, I should say. Encoding, of course, and then these things are obviously the outputs. On that note, something that Thomas only teased on, but that I want to show or explain in a little bit more detail, is with the audio source and sync elements, you can obviously use physical audio channels that are present like on the connected audio interface, but we have also an option that is called virtual ports. And the idea is that you can somewhat imagine this as a virtual audio card, basically. So you can create a virtual port, sorry, either mono or stereo, your choice. And they don't, of course, physically exist. However, they can still be referenced by other pipes. The reason why this is so important here is you saw the relatively complex connections and reroutings that we had with the Mainz 05 use case. So the idea would be, for example, that you can say, if I'm called with, if I receive a SIP call, the incoming audio is also routed to a virtual port. and then reused for other pipes, so that, for example, as we do with Mainz 05, it can also be streamed via Icecast as an online radio stream, also recorded, and also be used for any number of other things. And this way you can create very complex audio routing and audio reuse scenarios. If we take a quick look at these very simple SIP pipes that I've prepared here, there's these examples where, in fact, the incoming SIP audio is routed to these virtual ports. And in fact, here back in the unidirectionals, this audio is in fact also a source using those virtual ports. So this is this example that I described of reusing the same audio signal for, in this case, an Icecast stream or a recording or any number of other things. Somewhat related to this possibility. So currently none of our customers is using this, but it would theoretically also be possible to use those recordings that you've created also for reporter use cases to create podcasts or, you know, audio on demand files from this. So we also have an on-demand feature, which simply requires the user to make metadata and obviously the audio files themselves available somewhere, which could be locally, in fact. So on the same system, you can have a audio that you've just recorded and use this as an input for further audio processing, and then upload this to a content delivery network so it can be made available as a podcast, for example. So in the case of non-live distribution, this could be interesting, and most of this automation that Thomas described, and that also I described, would work for this as well. So applets have been described, I think, sufficiently by Thomas. I just wanted to show a few more things. So as he said, there's a variety of triggers possible. Obviously, alarms. You can do backup scenarios with this, like when pipe A fails because the audio input doesn't work anymore, then start pipe B, which has a recording running. So at least something is on air, but any number of automatizations can be done with this. And if you ever have a specific request for a new trigger or action, then this is also something we can very easily add. Right. To round this out, a few more things about that are relevant for SIP here. I mentioned the call profiles. So if you do a lot of SIP communication, you may be familiar with the issue that, especially if you're not sure what kind of system the other end uses, you may not know exactly which codecs they support and things like that. And to help with this, we have the call profiles. So when you make a SIP call, and this can also be used with RTP calls, actually, you can define a call profile that is supposed to be used with this call. And every call profile you create has this sort of priority lists of codecs and bit rates that you have prepared. So with this example webinar here, if I were to call someone with this profile, my first suggestion would be doing the call in Opus at 64K bits. However, let's assume the other side rejects Opus or doesn't have it. Then I would suggest AAC at 128. Maybe they reject this as well, then MP3. And if they also reject this in this particular call profile, then there simply wouldn't be a call possible. However, there's also a default call profile, which includes literally every single codec that you have on the system, just to ensure that at call is at least happens some form of fashion. SIP accounts is, of course, where you can register, or where you have to really register your SIP accounts. On this note, maybe one thing that is very nice to note that I'm not entirely sure came up before. In our system, it's also possible to do multiple calls from one SIP account and also receive multiple calls on the same SIP account, assuming, of course, the audio configuration is set up accordingly. Obviously, depending on how the subserver is configured, this may or may not work with those, but at the very least with our subserver and our system, this is a possibility. So you can actually, well, or simplify things by actually using less accounts, but still have the same number of calls that you want. And last two things very quickly here, also very relevant for the reporter use case, is we have a very in-depth user role management. So basically for everything you can do in the system, you can define exactly whether a user can interact with these things in various ways, not just, you know, in a binary sense of whether they can create or delete something, for example, but we can actually define very specifically via Lua scripts things like, yes, this user can start a pipe, but only this particular one, for example. Which is, of course, useful if you have non-technician reporters in the field who may otherwise do the wrong things by very specifically curtailing their options and eliminating or at least minimizing user error this way as much as possible. Especially, in fact, since we also have the option of setting a specific user to be dashboard only. So as an admin or technician, you could prepare a dashboard for the reporter with everything they need and nothing else, and then set that user to be dashboard only so that when they log in, they only see the dashboard that you have prepared for them. None of these other menus would appear for them. So this way, hopefully, user error is almost, or the potential for user error is almost eliminated, I should say. And the last nice to know or nice to have feature I would like to mention here in regards to this is at the top here, you can see the name of the system. In this case, it's called literally aixtream demo. You can actually customize this name. You can name it whatever you like. You can even set the color differently, which is very useful when you are operating multiple different systems at once, so that you always have a reminder exactly on which system you're currently on in your browser window or browser tab, so you don't accidentally configure the wrong end of the connection, for example. Yes, and that would be it for showing a little bit further or a little bit more about the aixtream UI, and of course a few more reporter highlights. And with that, I would hand over back to Virginie.
Thanks, Tobias, for your great demo. I will then share my screen again for the last part. Would you like to add something, maybe Tobias, on these few slides?
So this actually goes back to one of the questions we were asked earlier, what the Mainz 05 setup looks like on a hardware level. So here we actually see an example of this. So they have what is a variant basically of the audio codec server mini, which you can see on the left side. And in their case, it's connected to a Focusrite Scarlett audio interface, and then they control it via laptop. However, what they could also do, and which we have also tested for some customers, is simply connecting in a USB audio headset. So this would be your audio interface in this case, and then simply using a tablet to control the reporter. Since our audio codec servers have a locked Wi-Fi connection, you can connect with them via Wi-Fi locally, or yeah, if you're close, I mean, and then do the operation on the tablet. So you access the user interface via the tablet and do the operation there. This would be even slimmer than the Mainz 05 setup currently is. On the next one, we also see something. This is not from us, but it's something I wanted to highlight because it's maybe very interesting for this use case specifically. There's a partner company called MakeProX who do customized hardware control panels, just as you see here as an example, customized in the sense that you can literally customize the hardware however you like, but also in that the software partners like us in this case can actually define specifically what each button does and which fader, you know, interacts with which audio interface, etc. So for this use case, of course, if you really like having classic hardware controls including faders you can move, and knobs you can turn, buttons you can press, then this would be an option, connecting one of these Make Pro X devices using our API settings for the controls, and then there you go. This is where you could have classic hardware controls with your reporter use case.
Thanks, Tobias. Yeah, we are coming to the end of the webinar. So we got two right answer in the chat. In fact, the right answer is Reginald Aubrey Fessenden. He was a Canadian-born inventor, and his voice was the first ever to be broadcast by radio waves and heard by another person in 1900. We got two right answers in the chat. The first one from Angie Schultz and the second one from Angel Gorchkov. I must say that Miss Schultz she was fastest, because I got the message at 10:33 when the second one was 10:35. So the winner is then Angie Schultz. So congratulations, you won a Ferncast t-shirt. I will be happy to send it to you next week. And now we still have a few minutes. If you still have some time, and if you still have some questions, our Ferncast experts are still there. Thomas, Tobias, also Detlef, and Bernd is also there. If you like to write a question in the chat, or if you like to unmute your Detlef, would you like to add something? Maybe for.
I think that we covered quite a good range of questions in the chat already. So if there's something, of course, please everybody feel free. Yeah. Also, last words from myself. Thanks for participation, also for the team for great presentations. To you, Virginie, to Thomas and Tobias, and of course also to Tim, who gave a good insight from the field, which is, as I said, not only valuable for developing and optimizing the UI and the backend underneath, but also, of course, getting the feedback that actually the users are happy when they use it. So that's also good to see, and yeah, motivates to move on.